Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of our phone-in show, our show in which we have a chat with you guys about something surrounding the world of Arsenal. And of course, with this, it's still pretty fresh, isn't it, after yesterday's unfortunate result at Old Trafford. I thought that we'd have a chance to jump on and chat to some people about how they're feeling specifically about what happened yesterday and everything surrounding it. Before we get into things, do drop a like on the video, do subscribe to the channel if you are indeed new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. To kind of set the scene of where things are at, first of all, if you would like to join in, we've got 3 callers already lined up and raring to go. But if you'd like to join throughout the course of the next hour and a bit of today's show, the link to join is in the description. You need to be over the age of 18. I'll be using, as I always said before, the supermarket tip of checking if you're over 25 before letting you onto the show. That's the only way I can really do it as accurately as possible. And of course, we'll be talking about all things Arsenal, which can get a little bit heated and that. So if you can be as respectful as possible, we would appreciate it. Let's introduce to you our first callers of the day. It's Tom. How you doing, mate? You good? You well?
I am doing well, Tom. I'm remarkably optimistic and still not beaten down yet. So, I mean, you got to think about it. You're top of the table. So,
yeah, very true indeed. True indeed. Also joined, I think, for the 3rd phone-in show in a row by Isoa. How you doing, mate? You good?
Yeah. It's how are you doing, Tom? Tom also top of the league still, so we might win the league after all.
Absolutely, indeed. And lastly, joining us for I believe his debut on our phone-in show and the channel in general is Dylan. How you doing, Dylan? You good?
How you doing, Tom? Yeah, nice one, man. Congrats on the wedding.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate that. I wonder when that's going to stop. I wonder when people are going to stop saying that. I don't mind it. It's just I just wonder when the congrats will stop.
No, it's because my first time on there. I thought I'd just want to say it.
No, I appreciate it. I'm only joking around. Let's talk about it. Dylan, I'll start with you, mate. Tell me kind of what compelled you to jump on the show. What is it that you've got to say?
Well, yeah. I mean, like everyone last night. I mean, yesterday afternoon, I was pretty disappointed with what I saw. I mean, there were definitely quite a few positives to take from the performance, but I think generally, yeah, I mean, there was a lot to take from the game, kind of positive and negative, and I just kind of wanted to give my take on it. I don't really hear a lot of people giving the same kind of talking points, which I've kind of come to the past 24 hours.
What have you come to? Tell me them.
It's a funny one. I mean, I wasn't overly convinced by what I saw yesterday, really. I mean, I know, we dominated the possession, and I think that was kind of expected just because that's how United were likely to line up against us. But I think, it was kind of obvious that that's what we were going to go for. I mean, it was, if they were going to have any chances to get us in the game, it was going to be down to the counter attack. And I think Arteta in last season especially has shown quite a bit of naivety when it comes to lining up against teams that try to exploit the areas behind us. And I think even though our defence has improved dramatically, giving away possession in those key moments of the game proved to be our downfall.
So what do you make about that? Do you think that the setup of what Arteta went for was one of the big reasons as to why we dropped points yesterday?
Yeah, I think so. One of the words that the Arsenal community was using yesterday was naive. Arteta was naive again. What can I say, Tom? I mean, when you are against top opposition like Man United, I mean, no matter what you say about Man United, they always have a way against us when we go to Old Trafford. I don't know what it is about them. But when you stack up against teams like Man United and the star caliber players that they have, I heard something Arteta said in the All or Nothing documentary. We said, guys, I'm not changing my way. It's my way or the highway. Or that cannot happen in big games like this. I mean, the way that he sent the 3 subs all at once, that the way the structure broke down, they were almost like headless chickens, They don't know. The positioning was all messed up.
Yeah.
It was not good. I mean, Arteta, this is not the first, and I'm not sure it's going to be the last time he's going to commit tactical naivete in games like this.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I said it on this morning's show, the 3 subs in particular, I think, were the point of which our best hopes broke down, which is interesting, of course, because in the Fulham game, when we went a goal down and he took the left back off and he brought an attacking player on, that's really kind of where things turned more in our favour. Tom, why was it so different in this game? And why do you think he felt compelled to go kind of hell for leather and throw 3 new players on?
Well, I'm not really sure that was obviously that wasn't the best call. I think that the games are made up of moments. and I think that we had some moments at the very beginning that would have changed the game dramatically. The
Yeah.
whole, I'm still not going to. It might be sour grapes, but the Odegaard, that foul, maybe it was a foul. It is a contact sport, like they keep telling us. They've been telling us for a year and a half now. They're going to let some things go, but you can't. That's not a clear and obvious error. So that changes the entire momentum of the game. We may never get to those 3 subs, which, to everybody's point on the call, was not the best usage of our substitutes. You're right. It was a little bit discombobulated. It was a little bit all over the place, unbalanced us. But I don't think we would have ever had to do that if we weren't in the Old Trafford, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Bubble. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. There are sometimes, and I've obviously read through quite a lot of the comments from this morning's show, Dylan, and I think you raised up a good point about the naivety of Arteta in particular, and I definitely agree with that point. Something that gets thrown up a lot kind of when talking about reasons as to why maybe Arsenal drop points is the word reasons morphs into the word excuses. Do you think that the VAR decision is an excuse, or is it a genuine point to kind of go to?
No. I mean, there's definitely a point to be made about it, but there's plenty of other things we can point out during the game which have got nothing to do with the VAR decisions.
Sure.
The whole weekend there's been countless decisions made by the VAR, and it's almost to be expected based on what we saw about the referee just at the start. The players had something else to prove out there, and the referee shouldn't have anything to do with it. To be honest, I do think it was a bit lazy. I think. Yeah, I'd actually pinpoint it more down to what Arteta decided to do from the start of the game than necessarily what the players are even doing on the pitch. Just on a few key decisions based on the lineup. I don't.
What would you have changed in the lineup out of interest?
Yeah, me or Iowa.
You. What would you have changed?
Yeah. It's a really, really good question. I think there's a lot of ways we could have lined up yesterday. I don't think it was the perfect game to put Lokonga into the mix. I know I might be isolated in that. I'll accept that, but on the basis of his performance against Aston Villa, I wouldn't say it was a good remit to put him up against United. I think what would have been perhaps a safer but more apprehensive decision would have been to put maybe Zinchenko as a number 6 and then Tierney down the left, because I think Zinchenko was actually caught out quite a few times on the left-hand side, and maybe Tierney would have shown a bit more, I don't know, experience on that side.
Potentially.
I think it would work. And maybe Nketiah up top. When we did the subs, just one more thing if I could add, maybe if he just put an Nketiah, not changed the structure too much, then taken Saka off, potentially, because he was having quite a quiet game, or gone to a back 3 and then put Saka as a wing back, and then had Nketiah and Jesus as a 2 forward line. That was a possibility.
I think I said this morning. I said if we'd have taken Saka off, moved Jesus to the right, and put Nketiah through the middle, that wouldn't have changed too much. You would have.
I think Saka had a good game. I wouldn't have.
Yeah, I agree.
Saka had a good game.
I think he came into it, and it was the easiest to take off, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, he could have played as a wing back potentially, but
potentially.
Arteta doesn't want to change the system. That's the thing. It worked against Chelsea last season. Why can't it apply to Man United?
It is. I mean, we went to Stamford Bridge and we won with a back 3. It's not the system that Arteta clearly wants to play anymore. Do you agree, Ostowa, that this wasn't the best game to throw Lokonga in from the start? Because from my perspective, I might slightly disagree here with Dylan about that, because I feel as if you don't play Lokonga in this game, when you don't have Partey and you don't have El Neni, you're kind of saying, well, what is Lokonga? When are you going to use him?
He's an 8.
He's Yaya Toure.
Say again, sorry?
He's Yaya Toure.
What do you mean by that? He's more of an 8 than a 6. Is that what that's meant to say?
He's not a defensive player. He just said we might try. He has the brain of an 8, not a 6. He's not disciplined enough. He's very creative to be a person just laying around. Even his mind wanders a lot. He wants to be in the game. He wants to be the star man. I think so. That a 6 role suits a man that's more modest and humble and doesn't really need the plaudits. I think Lokonga is one of those players that his mind wanders. He wants to create stuff. He's in the ilk of Odegaard, and I mean. But there's a senior player with him that didn't help him, that was keep on bombing forward with Xhaka. I don't know why Xhaka was tending not to help him a lot. I mean, the whole midfield was free. Fernandes was doing whatever he needed. Eriksen was doing whatever he needed. Lokonga was wandering a lot. I didn't like it. in the previous broadcast, we discussed if Lukonga, Arteta put him in a bad situation, didn't give him a fair advantage to compete in a match alongside Partey or Xhaka in a consistent amount of games. So today, Aston Villa was a good test. He aced it. Now we have Manchester United, which is a bigger test. He didn't. We'll see. Time will tell if he will progress in the next Europa League games.
Tom, what do you make of this discussion around Lukonga? Was it wrong to play him in this game? And if we are going to play him, does it need to be slightly further forward in midfield?
Yeah, I think it's not wrong to play him. He does need to play. I think you've mentioned it many times before. He was our best player at the beginning of the season last year, and then he just stopped playing. So that, I think, was a detriment to him. I think him playing, and I agree with everybody here, he's an 8. He's not. We don't really truly have a 6. Even I think you may have mentioned, or maybe Harry mentioned on another show, that even Partey is not a 6. He just is the best 6 we have.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think I would have rather had him play at 8. I personally would have liked to have seen Ben White there. I think that, I know that we bought him as a center back. We paid a lot of money for him as a center back, but he's so versatile. He can definitely play that role when we have our 2 best 6s out of commission. And I do think we rushed back Zinchenko. I think because he wanted a little bit more stability there. I don't think he got it wrong necessarily to start with. I know he got it very wrong towards the end. I think we played really, really well. Again, it goes back to moments. If the ball doesn't get given away, for the first goal, and Gabriel doesn't dive in like Mustafi, and if Zinchenko stays over on the left, that goal doesn't happen. It's moments that added up, and it was just a snowballing effect there, that if that doesn't happen, we're still in control of that game. We're still the better side, and I still think we're the better side. They have a lot of world-class players. They've signed a lot of people this year. I still think we're a better team, and I think it'll show out at the end of the season.
Yeah, no, I think individually, you look at Man United's team, the difference in cost of that team compared to Arsenal's, even the bench, like when you take into account, Anthony looks interesting to me. I saw a lot of Arsenal fans kind of really battering him, saying they didn't see him that well. I mean, I can only speak from what I saw in the ground. I thought he looked pretty darn good, at times, and I think he will be an asset to them this season. I'm going to come around to you guys once with a question before we move on to our next group of guests. And there are still slots available for the show. If you want to join our conversation, people, the link is in the chat box. In the description below if you want to get involved with our show. Information is scrolling across the bottom of your screen. Dylan, do we point fingers at Edu then? Because, if... No,
I mean, no, I wouldn't say so. I think, we've all been drawn into the trap of jumping on the bandwagon and slamming down the transfer window. I think overall, because we got our business done really early, it's quite easy to look right at the end. But I think generally, I'm really happy with the signings we've made. I do think we rushed a bit towards the end, trying to secure our number 6. But I'd still put our transfer window up as one of the highest, and I think it comes down to Edu and Arteta's handiwork. I'm not biased in saying that. Like, I can point out a failure when I see it, but I do think,
so if I said to you that if we'd have signed a 6,
I'd been over the moon.
Yeah. Why didn't we sign one then? Why do you not think we signed one?
If the shoe fits, and I think they don't want to jump into any decisions that ultimately affect us up in the coming seasons. If we sign somebody and it doesn't work out, we didn't have to deal with that for the coming seasons. And I think now we're in contention to maybe sign somebody which might suit us a little better. Maybe we can last up until the January transfer window. I wouldn't want to risk it. It's not the ideal, obviously, but I mean, you'd rather tread carefully in the transfer window. The business we've made has been properly incredible, like especially considering the money we've spent on the likes of Zinchenko and Jesus, and we got Saliba back on a free. He's like a world-class signing that could have easily cost 80+ mil for a player like that. And I don't think people are putting that our fans aren't putting that into context. I think a lot of business has been really good. Yeah.
Lovely stuff. I'll ask kind of you along the same lines. Do you think that turning around and saying that, not signing a DM ultimately is costing us? Or like Dylan says, no, we didn't do that because we didn't want to rush out and sign someone for the sake of it?
Yeah, I think so. The deadline day was a failure. We didn't get anybody. if you have a person in Lukonga where we all agree, the panel right now, Dylan and Tom, of course, we say that he's not a number 6. Why not Edu a player that's well versatile in midfield?
I don't.
Invincible. Why does he get a 6 to
Was
help
my mic
us
still?
in that place? I
Sorry,
don't
Dylan, what was that?
understand.
I was just going to ask you if my mic's still on because I feel like I've got an answer for it. we didn't expect El Neni and Partey to be injured in
True.
the exact same week. I think that is a big part of it. I think we weren't even looking at the 6 up until the last week.
There's an argument though that we should have been from a lot
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
people, though. Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
there was rumblings, I'm sure, that even when we had Elneny and Partey, but Elneny had a 1-year deal and it was expiring. So there was no issue for Edu to bring a person on a 4-year contract that they believe is going to help us in the future with Elneny's contract expiring after 1 year. I think so they were going to let him go anyway. So, yeah, we could have had another person if they scouted him early, but we didn't get one. And it ended up costing us in that game. I mean, if we got that 6 and we pre-planned for it, Dylan and Mike, Tom, I mean, we could have helped.
Just call me Mike from the Gooners pod. That's terrible. You can't do that.
None of us are Mike, please. None of us are Mike.
Come on, mate.
I think it's right.
So then, so Lukanga could have played in the Europa League. It would have helped him there, because that's the style of team that he might be better in, performing. But in the Premier League, I think so. It's just a cut above his potential and ability right now.
Yeah.
Tom, round off this part of the conversation for us. Where for you do you sit regarding the decision, or maybe not the decision, but the inability, the failure to bring in that kind of player in that position that so many fans, including ourselves, I think, have called for?
Yeah, so I was one of the ones who was saying it was a dereliction of duty last January when we didn't bring somebody in to shore up the midfield or a striker. We left ourselves thin, but in hindsight and seeing what we did in the offseason this year and in the transfer window during the summer, we didn't reach for somebody in that January transfer window. When it came to this, to Dylan's point, we didn't know they were both going to go out with and I mean, Partey has become a liability at this point with his, so we should have known at least there should have been some cover there, but we didn't know both of them were going to go out. I don't know if I would say that it, because we only have, I think, 10 games left till the transfer window.
12 league games.
Okay.
People are quickly forgetting the ones after the World Cup. We have 2 games
okay.
in December that people keep forgetting about. So 12 games.
If we can get Partey back in the next 2 weeks, he's still going to be there as long as he, knock on wood, he's not
2 weeks can turn into 10 weeks quite easily.
Yeah. But so I think that we needed to do something, but I'm going to be happy if we are able to do something in the January window or in the summer that we didn't sell our future, because there's a lot of that going around right now in the Premier League. We're not that team. We're not Chelsea. We're not Manchester United. We're not going to go out and just buy. Hell, we're not even
for 70 million quid.
Yeah,
being 30 years old.
And as good as Anthony was yesterday, and has been in the in where he came from. He was at Ajax, right? I don't. There's no way I'd want us to spend the kind of money we spent on him as a striker. And Casemiro at 31 that he's going to be, 70 million is ridiculous. We're not that team. We need to be able to get somebody in there, and hopefully it's going to be somebody that's a little bit more experienced, not a same profile of 23 or below. We're talking 25, 26. I'm still upset. As a United States citizen, I'm a little upset of not getting Tyler Adams, but that's just my own.
No bias at all.
That. Yeah, no bias.
Lovely stuff. Tom, Dylan, thank you so much for jumping on the show today. Really appreciate your time, boys. Thank you for coming on. I hope you come back on again and appreciate it. Have a good one, lads.
Take care.
Cheers, guys. Massive thank you to Dylan Isowa and Tom. Let's bring on our next 3 guests. We got Zambezi and Real Raptor and Tariq. How you doing, boys? You good?
Yeah, I'm all right.
I'm much better today.
Yes, indeed. Tariq, let's start with you, mate. I'll kind of go through the similar kind of topics because they are the main talking points of the day. Yesterday was a really disappointing result, and Arteta is seeing the finger pointed towards him in particular for in some senses, the lineup at the start of the game, but most of all, the substitutions in the second half. Where do you stand on this debate?
Initially, when I was watching the game, I was looking at it and I was a bit shocked that he made 3 substitutions because that's a little bit unlike Arteta. I believe he's received a lot of criticism previously for not making subs quick enough or the right amount. So I was a bit shocked at that. And when 3 substitutions are made, we quite commonly see that you lose balance of the game and you lose a lot of rhythm in there because these players just aren't up to speed, and some players don't come off the bench as quickly as others, which is why I've given Eddie Nketiah a lot of credit for his performances coming off the bench. So I do think he was wrong in that, but honestly, I really do feel like with Arteta, he's damned if he does and he's damned if he doesn't for a lot of these things, because we've been looking at the bench even at times and said, why haven't we brought on Vieira? Let's make substitutions quickly. I've seen a lot of criticism for him on that. And Pep Guardiola, in certain games, he's against Crystal Palace. This is the one that came to mind in their 0-0 draw. He made 0 substitutions in that game when they were crying out for a goal. And that's because he wanted to try and build something in terms of momentum and in the game and trying to get players in. And because if you're bringing players in and out, you can lose a lot of control. And I thought that's what we did in that sense. So I understand the criticism, but I also respect the intention for Arteta, because that just shows the faith and trust that he has in these players now and in this group to go away from home and win the game. Once again, there's been criticism for him for being pragmatic in a lot of these games and not going for it. But in here, he's shown that he can. And yes, it's a shame that we conceded that second goal. I saw Harry say this, and I think he's spot on. That second goal was more criminal than the third goal, because in that point of the game, throughout the whole second half, we was dominating. And when we finally got that equaliser before the substitution was made, that's when we was building up. Even when we scored, we still had a lot of possession at that point, and we was in there half a lot. But then it was an error from Sambi Lokonga, which I'm sure we'll get to. And then from there, that's when Man United, the momentum swung, and you can't do that away from home in the Premier League. So the criticism overall on the substitutions, I understand it. And I think you're right to make it, but it's not. I don't think Arteta threw the game.
Fair enough. Zambezi, I saw you nodding along quite a lot through what Tariq was saying there, so I sense that you may agree with a lot of what he's saying. Let me challenge the point a bit, because I think that whilst I agree that it's good to see Arteta being, proactive and trying to make changes and recognising that something needed to change, for me, the substitutions were the wrong ones, and changing the structure in a game that we are, away from home in a very hostile environment. We had quite a lot of control of the game before we made those subs. Even though we were losing, we were hit on the counter, our heads had dropped, we made a mistake. But actually, the formation, the structure that we'd established throughout the game with the existing starting 11 had a good control on things. So for me, whilst I agree that being proactive is good and you want to see him make changes, potentially the decision to take off our left back for a forward, so we went and kind of lost that position there. We went to the wing backs of Saka and Martinelli, which we have done before. The Fulham game in particular comes to mind. I just feel as though whilst substitutions can be good, he got the choices of them wrong. What do you make of that? And of course, feel free to tell me I'm talking out my ass.
Oh, Tom, I would never do that. You're actually one of the voices of reason among our fan base, and so I applaud that. I agree with Tariq in one sense, and I disagree in others. I applaud the intention that Arteta went in that game with. So the intention being, I think he's very much one of the molds of Guardiola, in the sense of he believes that in any game we go to, if we play our football, we have a chance to beat anybody. Anybody can be got at, and I applaud that intention. I think that a lot of the control we had in this game, and the word, and I honestly, Tom, I hate this word, we dominated the game. This word gets touted around by media.
I've said this.
Honestly, listen, and hey, Arteta after the press conference. I walked away from that game a little bit frustrated at the results, but what amplified my frustration was hearing Arteta. Now, let me preface this by saying I'm a big Arteta fan. I believe he's worked a minor miracle with this team in many cases, because just look at a few years ago, we had to watch Ozil throw his hands up in the air and trudge back when he was frustrated and sulking. Now we're watching against the Fulham game, Odegaard is outpacing our number 6. Now, albeit it is El Neni and pace is not his thing, that's fine. He's outpacing our number 6 to try to, stop the counterattack. And I applaud that. This is a minor miracle. The malaise of negativity and apathy in this club has been removed. Pardon me, Tom. I might go on a little rant, but this is just passion.
No, that's what we're here for, mate.
Listen, mate. I mean, but then hearing Arteta after the game, these are the words that bothered me. I love Arteta. Mm-hmm. But he said we could have won this game had we had more courage. And I sat there and I just went, listen, I remember watching this game and saying, man, Saliba and Gabriel are really high up. They're practically in Manchester's box right now. I mean, I can't believe it. Yeah. Have they not heard of Marcus Rashford? Do they not know this man? He was like, you better recognize. I think that this dominance and this control that we had in this game, by the way, did we dominate? I mean, we had half the shots on target. We had
I think we did. I think we did dominate.
The word dominate is not what I would use. That's the thing. We controlled. Okay, we controlled.
Oh, that's fair.
Domination is what Liverpool did to Bournemouth. Now, albeit it is Bournemouth and it is Liverpool, but that's domination. When you go there and you actually impose yourself and you get end product, right? I think this worked against us. I think in the first 10, 15 minutes of the game. Sorry, if I'm talking too long, guys.
No, go for it, mate. Keep going.
Listen, the first 10, 15 minutes, Manchester United had, quote unquote, control of the ball, right?
Yeah.
And we were kind of a little bit on the back foot. Yeah. Then that chalked off goal, which, listen, guys, I will say is a foul, because had it happened the other way around, if Bruno Fernandes had come and knocked Odegaard off the ball and they scored, I would have been fuming. So, fair enough. We'll give them that. That's fine. I think that was a moment that Ten Hag and Manchester United kind of saw what we were going to do to them on the counterattack. And they kind of said, you know what, let's step back for a second. We then imposed ourselves on the game. Let's use that word a little bit. Controlled the game. Okay. Now, if you have been watching Manchester United or teams like Spurs, right, you know that they can't break down teams. You want to invite them over to your side of the field. You want to have them come and then hit them on the counterattack. Now, this word naivety has been thrown around a bit, and I think that's exactly what it is. I think our control of the game lulled us into a sense of, if anybody's going to win this game at 1-1, it's going to be us. And it's almost as if we said, no, there is no chance now. There was an 8-minute period where we had control of the game. We had constant possession that lulled us into that false sense of security, which then we paid for it. Now, I've got more to say, but I'm just going to let somebody else take the floor now.
That's fine, mate. No, I think you
go ahead, but that's how I feel about the game, and I was frustrated about that.
You're not the only one I've seen raise that point about the idea that, Man United, in a way, whilst we quote unquote dominated, actually what we were doing was playing exactly into what, United wanted us to do, because they are most dangerous when they're on the counter. Similar, as you say, to Spurs is the other really good example. And that's why Man City have fallen foul to Spurs on a number of occasions, because they've played that exact same way. So, yeah, I think you've raised some very solid points. I mean, before I kind of delve into that a little bit more, let's get Real Raptors comments. Is the name Real Raptor, or can I use your real name?
Yeah, it's fine. Can you call me Real Raptor? Can you hear me?
Stuff. Yes, I can indeed. Raptor, tell me kind of how, you've listened to both what Tariq and Zambezi have said. How are you feeling about what's been raised, and where is your head at regarding yesterday?
I mean, both of them raised some valid points. I do believe that we were led to a false sense of security when we sort of dominated the game. If there's anything
dominated
or controlled the game, to how Zombies categorize it. But if you recall how Liverpool played against Man United at Old Trafford, they also dominated the game or controlled the game as how we did it as well. And how they also lost the same way as we did on the counter when Rashford break through and then he managed to slip past the defense and then score the goal. So I think in a way that we also should have learned from that, because there was no other way where we could have been beaten just by controlling the whole midfield and the forward line in the Man United half of India half. And I think maybe when we were pressing a lot higher into our own half, maybe Ramsdale could have done a lot better in covering the defense and maybe he could have swept the ball a lot more faster. Because if you're going to press higher up the pitch, then maybe Ramsdale should have done a lot better in sensing the danger from the through balls that Bruno Fernandes was trying to, penetrate through.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. When you consider how they got at us, the pace, the ferocity, the speed of the passing, the accuracy of the passing as well from Fernandes and Eriksen in particular really, really hurt us. Tariq, when it comes down to Arteta then, and when you look at Arteta, and I want to kind of build on this point of being tactically naive in this game. I want to know what we then need to do because, we've got 4 more games against Big Six sides between now and the end of the season. Chelsea, City, Liverpool and Spurs. Now, we've gone to these games before and been, quote unquote, dominated, or the other team has controlled these games. And we've come out 3, 4, 5-0 down at times. So there is, I think, an argument that a lot of fans would like to see Arsenal go to these grounds and play like we did, as in have a lot of the ball, create a lot of chances and try and take the game to them. So how, therefore, do we find this balance between being tactically, what's the word I'm looking for? Tactically kind of sensible, aware, I suppose is a good word, kind of being aware of what the opposition are capable of, but also still trying to be that team to go to that next level and go to places like Old Trafford and try and win the game comfortably. Because, if we took our chances, I think we probably would have done.
Tom, and that's it. That's exactly why it's the main point. And it's an old football cliche. We always hear it. The first goal is so important in these games. And it's the same way anytime we can compare the Liverpool game of last season when they battered Man United 5-0 and when they played Manchester United in this game. The difference was they scored first, and how they scored, it was, they've got a lot of issues in their midfield right now. So progressing the ball, taking advantage of the opportunities that you get, etc. But they played and they carried out the game plan in a very similar way. Manchester City, when they've played Spurs, they've come up against the same issues, like that comment that was in Tom's chat earlier on this morning. That was spot on. Spurs scored the first goal last season in all of those games, and that's where they were able to win. That's why it was so vital. If you are going to, that's the only way I really believe that you can win away from home is if you impose yourself on the opposition. And that's what Arteta's going to try and do. He's not going to steer away from his principles. He's not going to, we are built to dominate possession now. We saw it against Manchester City on New Year's Day. And that was when we weren't as good as we are now. And Manchester City struggled. And that's why us against Man City and Liverpool, that's going to be a tasty fixture. And the neutrals are going to love it. It'll be nail biting for us. But the issue is we're going to come up against this again against Tottenham. The difference once again from last season and this season, in the first game, we scored first. And then in the second game, we conceded. And then, of course, there was other issues that happened after that. But if the first goal for the counter-attacking side is so important because that will only make it easier for them. So in what he can do, I find it really difficult to really say. And I don't think Arteta can really answer this either, and what he can do differently. Because in Manchester United, this is where it was our mistake. What I said it to my Manchester United friends whilst I was watching the game was, now, because United scored that first goal and they retreated, and then we scored. United then didn't go and say, right, we're gonna impose ourselves, and then they scored, because that's the hardest mentality shift to do in football. It's not if you've ever like when you played it or you ever watch it, as soon as you concede after being like trying to hold backs against the wall, you rarely. It's always the opposition. That's why 2-0 lead is the most dangerous.
Yeah, it's a floodgate situation.
Exactly. You can't shift from that. Right, we've defended now. Let's go and attack. Even in our games against Villa and Fulham, we never did that. We was able to carry on that momentum, and that's when we were able to win the game. So I find it hard to really say what Arteta can tactically do, because if he goes 1-0 up, you're not going to want him to sit back, because then that's inviting pressure and that's giving the opposition scope to go and score, especially away from home with the crowds. It's just about the quality, and Jesus said it in as well. And today, we need to have that killer instinct. When Ødegaard had that opportunity, Saka following that as well, away from home. Martinelli got in a few dangerous areas, was lacking a little bit.
The header from Ødegaard's cross. By the way, that pass from Ødegaard was just out of this world to Martinelli. But those chances we need to take as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's it.
Sorry, Tariq, I feel like I cut across you there several times.
No, that's fine. I was just going to say in terms of Ødegaard as well, like these are the things that I was hearing people saying Saka was having a poor game up until he scored. This is what was going on. This was the narrative.
Why is that? Where's the perception come from? Is it as simple as saying that there are people that want us, Arteta or the players to? Is it that? Or is it a genuine kind of looking at it and going, no, I think I genuinely thought he was poor, but I didn't see that.
It's hard in football because you're always going to have preconceived like subconscious bias in terms of how you rate a player, or if you think that Arteta should have signed someone in that position. So like when we was linked with Neto and Mudryk, of course, a lot of those, and it's more emphasizing. People are really nitpicking and emphasizing, no, this is why he's not good enough. This is why we need to improve on him. This is why we need competition for him. And Saka was our key threat. He was bullying Malacia throughout a lot of that game. And I was seeing that before he scored. But then when he scored, now it's, okay, now he's had a good game. And I think the same with Ødegaard. The criticism that he faced, he's not at the level that we know Ødegaard can be, but he was still having key moments. It was his pass that opened the chance for the goal. He played that, Tom, excellent point, that ball to Martinelli, which he could have done much better with a header, getting it across the goalkeeper. It's a lot of it is preconceived like thoughts and in their bias towards players, I believe.
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, I don't know why. If some people really want to kind of hate on a player or really want them to fail just because it would mean they were right. Because I mean, if you're hoping a player fails because that you're asking for Arsenal to be worse, it's a strange thing. Zambezi, there was a comment from Ian in the chat. It says Zambezi is 100% correct here. Finally, someone is saying that Mikel Arteta has been tactically inept against Erik ten Hag. I wanted to kind of clarify this. Is that what you were saying, that he was tactically inept?
I won't go that far. All right, just like we've talked about on previous shows, the transfer window at the end was a failure. I wouldn't put it that way. I would put things like this in the category of, I'm really happy that we're trying to play this kind of football. I'm really happy that we're trying to go. One of the main differences I see between this year and last year and in years prior is that we have a little bit more composure in being able to handle the press, to be able to get out of situations where we can control the game. In previous years, we would get the ball back, we would create a turnover, and then when we were trying to get out of our own half, we would quickly lose the ball. All right, and that was because of maturity of players, experience, and also, I mean, we are still, I think, the youngest average team in the league. But we're getting a lot better at that. And so I'm applauding this approach. I'm not at all saying that Arteta is inept tactically at all. I just think that there is a point where if you get to where Man City is, when you have their quality, you can say, and the time they've had together, by the way, and their success, and say, you know what, we are going to impose our football on someone else. We are getting there, but we're not exactly there yet. It's the destination that we're getting to. There are times in a game where you can make adjustments, or even before the game, and say, look, these are the strengths and weaknesses of this team. I'm going to approach the game that way. When I would say that there are changes that can be made in Arteta's tactics in certain games, but I wouldn't say at all that he's inept. I think he's being very brave in the way he's playing.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm picking on Ian now, and I'm not. I swear, it's just the comments keep coming up. Question kind of then: how does Brighton win games or give it a go against big teams away? They also control possession. Our forward line was hustling, bustling without scoring, and we don't shoot near. I would ask, where do Brighton finish in the league? Where do these teams that go and part the bus and nick a point or nick a win, where do they end up finishing in the league table? And the answer is either mid-table or some of them go down. The teams that go to these places like Manchester City and Liverpool and win because they controlled the game and took their chances, they win the titles. I don't want to be Man United like that. I don't want to win like Man United did. Whilst it's, you got the points, congratulations. And while Spurs got the points, congratulations against City, they're in and around the top four. They're chasing that. I want to be at the top. I want to get Arsenal to the top. And I assume Ian as well, and like the people in the chat box, want Arsenal to be there. You don't get there by going and parking the bus. Okay, it just doesn't happen across the season. We will get there one day, and I feel that we will. Playing like we did yesterday, we just need to be clinical. It's just, it's as fine as that. If we take our chances yesterday, if Ødegaard gets that chance that he got across from Jesus, does that put us 2-1 up in that moment, or is it 2-2 in that moment? I can't remember the exact scoreline at the time, but I think that gives you the momentum to go on and take a result. If Martinelli scores that header, if we get a bit fortunate with VAR in the first instance, and to be honest, whilst Zambezi, I know that you said you've kind of felt that it was a foul. From my perspective, I don't think VAR is there to re-referee the game, and so if the referee has seen it, if the referee's seen it and deemed that in that moment not to be a foul, I don't think there's enough for VAR to go, no, you've made a complete error there, mate. That's clear. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So whilst I absolutely sympathise with the position, I think if that was against Arsenal, I would probably be fuming just because of the way football works. But that's kind of where I'm at. So Real Raptor, to kind of finish off this section as well with yourself. Sure.
Yeah.
Let me bring around, or maybe not to finish this section. We'll see how it kind of goes through. But the whole idea around Lokonga and his struggles. Yes. What do you make of the decision to play him, to use him, and also the argument around it shouldn't be Lokonga because we should have signed someone?
Okay, let's try and go back last season. Remember when we played? Let me try and recall. It was Southampton and Brighton, and also Crystal Palace, right? At that time, Partey was injured. Okay, and El Neni never started a game that season, right? Remember, okay, and he and Lokonga started those 3 games, and all those 3 games we lost. Okay, after
Partey started Palace, but then came off, and Lokonga came on. But you're right. Other than that,
and all those 3 games we lost. Now, after those 3 games, we were dead and buried, and then we didn't expect to even try to climb towards the top 4 challenge. And then we faced United, Chelsea, and West Ham 2 games away. We were supposed to get 0 points, given our form. And El Neni started in those 3 games, and we managed to grind out a win in all those 3 games. And then from then on, we tried to have a late surge, but unfortunately, we came short. Okay, now we know Lokonga limitations in terms of his defensive duties. Okay, and in this game, although it wasn't there present, I personally felt that his progressive passes were okay. There was some, I mean, we don't dominate United without having everyone in midfield, right? Let's put it.
That's a great point. Yeah, we don't play like we did without Lokonga contributing something. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. We can't play like how we did. And the only reason why they scored was because Lokonga isn't just a good DM. That's all we can put it down to. I mean, any other team that can expose Lokonga is through fast counter-attacking. How else can Lokonga just come back and then cover the midfield? So it's a matter of how we try to shy away, or I mean, not say shy away, but try to hide his deficiencies, by having another player sit in front of him. But that's the thing, right? Because Partey can do both, right? He can cover the midfield, he can protect the back 4, he can just split the defense wide open with a defense splitting pass. So it's a matter of what do we want, right? And right now, we already went past the window, and we have just to, weather the storm, whether we want to look towards strengthening the midfield come January. Because right now, we don't have El Neni or Partey at the moment. We could probably sit here and then on hindsight and tell ourselves that, okay, maybe Zinchenko should have started in midfield. Maybe he should have played defending midfield and instead of Lokonga, and then this wouldn't have happened. But it's really all on hindsight, and we won't know unless we try. But if you were to ask me, right, I think Lokonga maybe should have started this game because Man United is just.
Do you not think if he doesn't start, this is the kind of thing. If you don't start Lokonga in this game, the question is, what on earth is Lokonga? When are you ever going to use him? Do you know what I mean?
And you raised a fair point because if it was me, right, I would have started Lokonga maybe in the Europa League or maybe in those games where he could get his confidence back up. In the home games where the crowd is supporting him and he wouldn't feel so pressured. Because most of the time when he gets to play, it's always those high pressure games, against those big teams. Why does Arteta have to put him in this kind of position? He doesn't need to do it, right? He's a young guy. How else is he going to perform against a tough team like that?
Yeah, the argument of he's not ready. How do you get him ready? You play him. That's how you get him ready.
Yeah.
And I was looking at his, just while you were talking there as well, Raptor, about that. I was getting up his pass map from the game against United. He completed 36 of 40 passes, 90% passing accuracy. The 4 passes that he misplayed, 3 of them happen in our own defensive third. You know. And I think that's telling about kind of the youth player that he is, that he's still young, and those key errors that he's making are happening in those dangerous situations. When you gradually develop that, you know, they disappear. But still, 36 of the 40 passes that he made reached the target, and a lot of them were progressive. I mean, I'm looking here at the number of forward passes he made during the game specifically, and he made 8 out of 11 of those. 6 passes overall of the 40 were backwards, so you know, and all of them ironically reached the target, but the rest are either lateral passes or kind of spreading the play, etc. But 11, so over a quarter of his passes that he made were progressive in the game, and moved the ball forwards. We're going to round off this section and move on to our next group of callers, just because a couple more have jumped on. Thank you to Raptor, Zambezi, and Tariq. Really appreciate your time, boys. You've done fantastically well.
Can I just have a final word? The final word on everyone with Lokonga. All I want to say, Eddie Nketiah spoke just before he got games. Judge me after a run of games. That was Lokonga's second start of the season. Young players, they need more games. That's my final word. I
know, and if you remember, Nketiah's first game that he started, I think, was the Southampton game that we lost. He didn't play particularly well. Yeah, I think he was pretty poor. So, you know, you actually raise a very good point. Okay.
Can I end on one thing as well?
Sorry, Tom.
I just
what happened?
Is that okay if I just say one last thing?
Very quick, go on.
Mate, so it's not one or the other. You know, I don't want to say I want us to park the bus. I'm with you. I want us to play our football and be really good at it. If I can make the analogy, I want us to be Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali, when he was going up against George Foreman, everybody said he's going to get knocked out. He's got too much power and this and that. That's where rope-a-dope came in. He let George Foreman get tired, throw some punches, and then in the end won the fight. But he doesn't fight every fight like that. You go in and you apply your tactics to your opponent. That's all I was saying. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
So thanks for having us on the show, and I hope Married Life's treating you well, mate.
Thanks, man. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one, lads. I'll speak to you soon. Massive thank you to Zambezi, Raptor, and Tariq for jumping on the show. Let's get our final guests on of the afternoon. It's first of all, Elliot. How you doing, mate? You good? You well?
I'm back. I'm well. I'm home. I'm not working.
Good stuff. Yeah, actually tuning in from home for the first time. And for making his debut, I believe, also on the channel is Mohammed. How you doing, Mohammed? You good?
Hi, Tom. At last, I'm with you. Hi. How are you?
Pleasure. How are you doing? I mean, I think I recognise you from the Arsenal Lounge chat box as well, and of course from my own. So thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you jumping on. We'll start with Elliot. Tell me, we're kind of on this Lokonga Edu situation right now. Lokonga obviously had his struggles in the game, and obviously 2 of his errors led to, unfortunately, partook in the conceding of 2 goals. There is then these questions being raised towards Edu and the club about we should have signed someone so that we weren't in the situation that when we went to Old Trafford, if we faced injuries, that we should have signed someone. So where is your head at on this one?
Well, again, I've always said that we should have signed a midfielder this summer. We didn't. Not through lack of trying, of course, but again, we've had. But I have to give it back to Arsenal. We had ample opportunity to do something. So we're again winging it. We're again rolling the dice to see how we do. Yesterday was a typical example of throwing Lokonga into a midfield in which he was possessionally sound, but tactically slightly inept, and he wasn't up to the challenge in terms of positional awareness. So again, getting back to the question. Something should have been done in the midfield. I am praying that something's done in January. I am praying that we look at a guy like Danilo or a few of his his ALX, and getting somebody in January and or signing somebody on a pre-contract so that we can really solidify this midfield, because it's our biggest hole, it's our deepest hole, and again, Edu has indeed let it slip on this one, but I hope it's with the idea of bringing in somebody who they really want, but in January. We cannot let it go for a whole season like this.
Mohammed, first of all, thanks for joining on again the show, for making your debut. Welcome. Give me your thoughts on kind of this idea around Edu should have signed someone, and the fact that we didn't is a colossal failure.
You know, Tom, I always hear you and watch your programs. I'm realistic, like you. For me, you are top journalist, you and Harry Simio, and
Thanks,
I
mate.
really enjoy
I'm
it.
sure Harry will appreciate that.
Harry, I was with his program analyzing Arsenal many times, as with Lucky Firm, as with Derek, as with many program. But it's first time with you, so it's my pleasure. I didn't catch up with the call-in show, so yeah, I'm excited about being with you first time. About Arsenal, okay, I know your opinion. I rate our window 6 from 10. Why? Because I will not count Matt Turner as a backup goalkeeper. I will not count Marquinhos as one for the future. They are not playing now. They are not useful now. They are not affecting our team now. Even Fabio Vieira played his debut, his first 15 minutes yesterday. So until now, Vieira didn't have his influence on the team also. So actually, we signed just two top players, Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko. And for me, it's not enough to be more strong, more complete in this league. For me, this season, I said this 2 months before. This season is the toughest season in the Premier League history. It's like a war. Why? Because see what all the teams did in the transfer window. Outside the top 6, not only the top 6, even West Ham, even Newcastle, even Wolves. These matches against these teams is like a war now. It's not easy, even home and away. Take in mind the top 6. United, our big test was yesterday. We'll play Tottenham and Chelsea, and of course the top 2 are far ahead, Liverpool and Man City. So for me, it was clear that Arsenal needed a top winger and another midfielder to be more safe, to have more depth and more quality competing with these teams. You look at Tottenham squad and Chelsea squad. Depth-wise, they are far ahead of us. We don't have depth. Last season, Saka was burned out. In the last 5 or 6 weeks, he was tired because he played 38 matches from 38. He played all the league. It's not healthy. Martinelli also. We can't rely on Saka and Martinelli all the games, even in the league. Not to mention the Cups game, the Europa League. So not having another option, another winger, like yesterday match, like the previous matches. We needed another option from the bench.
Who would you have signed, Mohammed, out of interest? So for those 2 positions, I agree with you. I wanted to see a wide player. I wanted to see a midfielder. For you, who would you have gone for?
Sometimes I'm strange of Arsenal decisions to go to a difficult deals. For example, Ornstein said Arsenal will go to a winger when Pepe goes. Okay, Pepe left Tunis. For me, if I was Edu, after 48 hours, the winger will be already in the squad. You must have plan A, plan B.
Who?
For me, I prefer some names in the Premier League, proven. For me, Trossard is underrated. For me, Trossard is a fantastic player. Look at his numbers with the Belgium national team, with Brighton. He can play left wing, he can play right wing, and with Belgium, he played as a striker also. So for me, Trossard was available, and his agent, even I read about what he said. He said that we will move out from Brighton when an ambitious project appeals to us. So I think our project at Arsenal are appealing and are moving. Why we didn't look at a player like Trossard? Okay, another name. For me, it's an easy deal. When Ornstein mentioned Neto, the same moment, Tom, I said it's an impossible deal, not even a difficult, an impossible. Bearing in mind, 1 week before the window. Bearing in mind, he signed a new deal with the Wolves last summer. Bearing in mind, Wolves didn't want to sell their winger. Bearing in mind, if they want to sell, we are not like Chelsea or Man United overspending. Look at the crazy numbers Chelsea and Man United are overspending. We are not like them financially. So a player like Ismail Assar, proven winger, very talented winger, 24 years old, can play in the right wing, striker, left wing, pace, with technique. He can score goals. He can create goals. His price is £22 million. He was going to Aston Villa, and the deal failed due to not agreeing personal terms. If we will just look at the other options.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think they're two really good choices. You know, I often ask people the question, Mohammed, about who, you know, because I think that's the crux of the argument, is it's asking who. Genuinely, you've given me really two good options in Trossard.
If you went to Ismail Assar, you know, Arsenal training ground and Watford training ground. Of course, I'm in Palestine, but
can we have him? Yeah, we are next door.
You can strike the deal in 5 minutes. Just walk into Watford, sit with them, £20 million, 22 plus add-ons, and the deal is with us. Ismail Assar is a very good, realistic option. He can make competition for Saka, for Martinelli. He's young, his pace, his technique. He's a scoring, of course, winger. So I think Edo failed. After promising summer, Edo failed. Also, Tom, after signing Zinchenko in July, we were in America, in the training ground. I waited for the next deal, and it was a winger. It was a winger before the injuries of Partey and El Neni. Okay, we wanted a midfielder. A winger was more necessity. So it was calm in our market. Calm. It's obvious that Bellerin will leave. Pepe will leave. Niles will leave. Even in the last minute, I was sure this was the plan. So why not moving? Why making the team now short? We knew that injuries on our side is inevitable. And concerning Partey, I don't know why content creators, maybe like you, like other top journalists, don't bear in mind or mention a worrying stat that Partey, from the first moment he joined Arsenal, his percentage
58
playing games 54%. He played 54% of Arsenal games from the first match until now. So it was inevitable he will get injured. In fact, he played half of the matches for Arsenal from the day he signed. So we must knew that he will miss a large chunk of matches. So why not signing another player? So all these points, Tom, for me are worrying. I'm worried, really. Even before Manchester United game, we are short, we are light, wingers wide, very worrying. Just Saka and Martinelli, and in midfield, look now, Partey and El Neni out, and Smith Rowe even picked an injury on warming up after the game. It doesn't happen in any club, just Arsenal.
Elliot, let me bring you into this. You've heard what Mohammed's had to say there about it a lot. And to be honest, I can't disagree too much about the wide area in particular. Especially when you've got a potential world-class starting player in Bukayo Saka, adding someone like an Ismail Assar, like a Trossard, there isn't too much to come back against that. I think that Arsenal clearly had a value on certain players. They clearly want to go for quality. They wanted to try and get Neto. That clearly wasn't possible in the end because of the contract situation, all of that. But I've seen, Liverpool go out and sign Shaqiri at one point, and he helped them towards a Champions League victory. I've seen, Manchester City go out and add players that you wouldn't necessarily look at and say, oh, yeah, that's a bit of a, Ferran Torres at the time coming in from Valencia wasn't particularly, it wasn't a surprise. It was a bit of a surprise to kind of see Ferran Torres. They eventually rock up at there. They signed Nathan Ake, from Bournemouth, yes, for a big fee, but I think he's added something and given them depth in that centre-back position. So you've heard what Mohammed's had to say. You've heard that kind of side from me. So what do you make of it?
again, he's plausible on all those points there. I think Trossard would have been an excellent addition. Ismail Sarr would have been a nice challenger for the Saka role. And again, Danilo would have been excellent in the midfield. I think he was I thought as soon as I heard that name, and I did this, and I did the studies and I read the stats. I said, why wasn't this guy done earlier in the window? It's a lot of these guys in terms of our positions of need could have been done way early in the window. I understand that we got in Jesus, excellent signing. I understand Zinchenko that we got in knowing that Tierney is injured, excellent signing. But we should have seen, as Mohammed said, Partey is injured 54 to 58% of matches. He's not there. We need to address this position. And they saw, oh no, we have El Neni. El Neni is a huge drop off from Partey. It's a huge drop off. El Neni is, he does what he says. Then he's a very good professional. Nothing wrong with him in terms of his capabilities. But the fact of the matter is he's limited. And the fact of the matter is when I see a guy like Danilo who is waiting there for us, and it came to a crucial part of the Brazilian season, and they were never going to let him go then. That became a problem. And the fact of the matter is that we had not acted, especially on the wing position, especially on the holding position, especially in the left 8. I mean, Tielemans could have been done way early in the window, but they kept searching and searching and searching. They said, there was no one there.
Why do you think no one signed Tielemans in the end?
I don't think they do. I think they were thinking about it and they dithered on it.
No, why did no one else go for him?
I think that I think his stock dropped as the season began. As the season began, I think people started analyzing Tielemans, analyzing his game, and realizing that at the end of the day, he was not for us. I know Liverpool were having a look at him. I know a few other clubs, including Arsenal, were having a look at him, and they said, you know what, he doesn't suit our needs. He just doesn't, and a lot of his frailties came to bear, and a lot of teams didn't want to take a chance on that anymore. They'd rather, and especially at the price that Leicester were asking for, 35 to 40 million. Said they were going to pay for that. We'll wait until he comes on a free. Then I'll see. Then I think you'll see a lot more teams go in after Tielemans. Then. Knowing that he'll get on the signing bonus, knowing that they don't have to pay a transfer fee, then I think a lot more the queue will get a lot larger for Tielemans. But right now, he wasn't worth it. So again, we have 3 areas of need: the left 8, we have the holding, we have I would say 4. Striker is another position that we can contemplate because we don't have that plan B striker. But that was way down the end of our needs, really. But again, I think our number one need. Number one need should have been that Partey position. I really do. I really think that that was the number one cause of concern. Then we can move towards the wing position, especially when Pepe moved out, and then we can go towards the left 8 because again, as you were saying, Xhaka is playing well, but he was found out last night, especially positionally. I think he was playing that Gundogan position way too much. He was found out of place in a lot of counter attacking times, and that's where his limits are. We need a guy who can come in and and fill that position and not to say that we need to do away with Xhaka all throughout. I think he'll be an excellent squad player, but I think we need a new left 8 who can come in and not only be tactically aware, not only get us those necessary goals, but also be that positionally and tactically aware. Because again, we get, especially against these counterattacking offensives like Tottenham, like Man United, we get found out, and people don't know where to be when necessary. And I think Partey was a huge miss on that, but also the left 8 was a huge miss on that because we found Xhaka further forward when he should have been in holding in a defensive role to stop any sort of breaking attacks that we had. So it's there are a lot of holes to be filled. I think Arsenal should have been filling these holes earlier in the window, if not late in the window, targeting certain players and getting them in, at least 1 or 2 of them, And I think that that Partey position is a huge miss. I hope they get Danilo I hope they get Danilo in January, because again the Brazilian league is pretty much done at that time, or get some sort of holding midfielder, because again the drop off's too big. I mean we love Lukonga, but the drop off's too huge between Partey and everybody else. El Neni is too short, is too short of being that top level as well from Partey, and we missed him. And we definitely missed him. And so, we have to, January is that much more important this year. We can't go another January without any signings. We can't.
Agreed.
I
agree with you. We'll close off the show with a final question for Mohammed around the Partey situation. For me, Arsenal, either last summer, the upcoming January window, or next summer, they need 2 centre midfield signings. One has to be a competitor, not a backup, because I get sick and tired of the word backup, to Partey. It has to be someone as good, if not better than him, which is not easy to do, because Partey, when fit, very, very good player. And that's part of the reason why I think maybe they didn't sign a midfielder this summer, because they didn't feel that they could bring someone in as good as Partey. And in my view, that's what they should be looking for. I think they renewed El Neni because they thought, we'll try and sign one midfielder, which ended up not happening. And El Neni would be like a backup option for us. But we're going to need 2 midfielders, because for me, we need to let El Neni obviously move on at the end of this season. We need to replace his depth in the squad, and we need to add a midfielder that competes with Partey. So, Mohammed, how do Arsenal going about tackling that when or if the options aren't necessarily there, which for me, I don't necessarily think they were in that position last summer?
I think the player that was similar to Partey was too expensive, Onana, and he went to Everton for 40 million euro. So Onana is a beast. For me, I predict for him a huge future. If we can scout player like him, okay. If we can't, not necessary to bring number 6, maybe to play a player between 6 and 8 like Tielemans, and with his presence, without Partey, we can play 4-2-3-1, and with Partey, we can play 4-3-3. Must be flexible. And another point, Tom, is that why we didn't bring a winger after Pepe gone out to the French league? Another point. Partey was injured on Friday training before Saturday match against Fulham. The market was to close next Wednesday, and Al Neni is injured in Saturday after 1 day from Partey injury. So we had 6 days, 5 or 6 days to move, and we didn't move. For me, Douglas Luiz is a good option, and I wrote about this. But for me, we could have bring in Douglas Luiz, but not on deadline day, because Aston Villa, for me, from what I read, was ready to sell him, but not on deadline day. Maybe if we moved 5 days earlier, we will get him. And another name I mentioned on my Twitter page, Dennis Zakaria. I mentioned it 5 or 6 days before Chelsea signed him. I wrote that it's one of the good options, very good options on the market on loan. And I knew that Juventus are ready to bring him out on loan. He's one. We Arsenal were after him last summer and the summer before. We were tracking him. He was one of the best midfielders in the Bundesliga. So he's very good player. It didn't work it out for him with Juventus, but he's on loan. On loan. Arsenal didn't strike any deals on loan. I didn't know why. Look at Odegaard deal. We brought him on loan, then it worked out, and we got him permanently. So Dennis Zakaria, if he delivers very well at Chelsea, they will buy him from Juventus next summer. So Dennis Zakaria was available, and he can play number 6. He's a very, very good player. On loan, it's a safe. You can, Tom, you didn't pay a large amount of money. I think 4 million euros, Chelsea, 4.5 million euros for they pay for Juventus for his loan. So Arsenal is not creative on the market. We are slow. So it's a worrying scenes, Tom. We must be more unpredictable in the market. We must have many options: plan A, plan B, plan C, and to move on.
Zakaria on loan would not have been a bad option at all. Again, I can't disagree with you. I think that Edu in the market, as I said on deadline day, you know, and you know, we did these in the phone-in shows. We made an error in not being prepared enough with that position. We should have signed someone permanently. You know, I think there are questions. You know, I would not have signed, saying, it would have taken. I think on deadline day, I said I would have done it because of it, just in the emotion of the moment, knowing that we need someone. You know, you're in that moment. You're like, we need to sign someone. When you think about it in reflection, you know, £25 million for Douglas Luiz, who isn't a 6, by the way. You know, he's more of an 8 than a 6, and certainly he's 10 times the player he is at an 8. Wouldn't have probably not in the long term been the smartest of decisions. But Zakaria on loan for a season. It's difficult to disagree with you, Mohammed. It really is.
And Tom, for me, Arteta is a diplomatic when he replies in the presser. You know, you watch. So
yeah, I've been there. I know it is. Yeah.
Yes. It's very good experience. So Arteta said that no one will enter our door. It has to be a top player, a talented player, a very good player, fantastic, suitable. Okay. I take all this, but there are many players on the market, not in England and outside England, and we are not the best team in the Premier League to sit and to choose. No. I will not. Not this. Look at Manchester City. They signed more players than us. Man City, the most complete team, the most strong team in the league. So we are slow, and. For Josh Kroenke putting just 25 million in the budget for the midfielder, so the Arsenal offers are laughing. 20 million for Luiz, then 23, then 25. You add 2 million. So something.
I mean, I with the Luiz thing, look. Aston Villa were fools to not accept that bid. You know, no matter what I think about the player, Aston Villa were fools to not accept that. He had 1 year left on his deal. You got a chance. Look, if that was us with a guy with 1 year left on his contract, not starting the first, I think started one of 4 of the first games, we would be overjoyed to receive a £25 million bid. So, you know, I personally think I can see why Arsenal offered that amount of money for Luiz. It wasn't enough to them. That's on them. I think it was mad they didn't accept it, to be honest. But yeah, look, I need to round off the conversations. I'm conscious of the time. But Mohammed, Elliot, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate your time. You both raised some fantastic points and made me think a little bit harder about things. That's for sure. Appreciate it, boys.
Thank you, Tom. It was my pleasure to be with you and hope to be with you again soon.
Thanks, man. Cheers, Elliot, as well. Appreciate your time, my friend. Have a good one, lads. See you later. And that rounds off today's show. Sorry that we couldn't get everybody on, and there's people down below me waiting. I did leave a message in the private chat to say that we're going to have to round things off very soon. So apologies that I couldn't jump on. Do try again on the next phone-in show, and we'll try our hardest to get you on as well. Thank you, everybody that's tuned in and listened as well. Drop a like on the video. I want to do more of these phone-ins because I think they're good. They make me think, you know, just like Mohammed raised some points there that I haven't really thought about going, you know what, Zakaria on a loan deal for a season, it's not a bad shout. It isn't a bad shout. Would I rather see a player, you know, playing for Switzerland internationals, play for Juventus, played at Gladbach? You know, I know he's had his injury problems, but if we get him on loan, is he really our problem for the long term? Probably not. Probably not. You know, we're just sending him back to Juve after a loan. We've got an option if he's great to buy him. So it's not a bad shout at all. We will see you tomorrow morning on the 8 a.m. show, of course. So do make sure you drop a like on the video, turn those notifications on so you don't miss that. And yeah, it's been a genuine pleasure as always. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, up the Arsenal. Oh, I can't find the button. Where's the button? There it is. See ya.